How do, and welcome back to another video where we're looking at the history of brewing from the towns, cities, people and places that make such amazing stories. So today we're going just down the road. Welcome to the brewery town of Tadcaster. Records of brewing exist in the town from as early as 616 AD. By 1378, 5 brew houses were registered in Tadcaster. Tadcaster's brewing history is centred around the quality of its water from the River Wharfe that flows through the town. Built on limestone, the water naturally filters through its popples or natural springs. As the water filters through this rock, it becomes very rich in minerals such as calcium sulphate, ideal for brewing beer. So we start our story here. The building behind me was originally the Thomas Beaumont Brewery, the oldest recorded brewery in Tadcaster, and claims to be the oldest in Yorkshire, dating back to the late 1600s. It is here we start in 1758, when the brewery was known as the Backhouse and Hartley Brewery. Operated by David Backhouse and John Hartley, it was in 1847 that a tanner from Leeds, just a few miles down the road, he was called Samuel Smith. No, not that one. He persuaded them for his son to join the company. His name? John Smith. By 1852, business was booming, and the son, well, he'd bought the business. Along with his brother William to assist, the brewery became very, very successful. The popularity of beer in the UK was increasing. This was driven by the Industrial Revolution. As such, John Smith was looking to expand. John Smith acquired some land just a few yards down the road, and he began construction of this. The John Smith's Brewery. Sadly, John Smith died in 1879 and he did not get to see the completion of this magnificent building and brewery, which opened in 1883. By 1886, the brewery was being run by John's brother William. Upon William's death and through the instructions of the will, the brewery was now owned by the Smith relatives, Henry Herbert Riley and Frank Riley, becoming Riley Smith. Through the terms of the will, part of the estate was handed to John and William's nephew. The term directed that part of the estate in question was the original brewery, back where we started. And the nephew's name? Samuel Smith. Yes, that one. So was this the start of a new brewery? No, not yet. Samuel Smith had not actually inherited a brewery. Samuel Smith had actually inherited an empty building. All the brewing equipment and vessels were transferred to the new John Smith's Brewery, just up the road there. However, undeterred by this and due to the increasing demand for beer, Samuel Smith managed to re-equip the building, and along with its original 85-foot well providing the perfect water for brewing, finally opened up the Sam Smith's Brewery at the old brewery in Tadcaster. But this is a brewery town. Often overlooked by the Smiths' influence, Tadcaster has a history of other brewers in the town. Other brewers in the town include the Edwin Wilson and Benjamin Brames Brewery, or the New Brewery as it was called. That was located here in 1875 on what is now a car park. This partnership was ultimately dissolved in 1880, where Benjamin Brames started his own brewery, located here. So this is part of the John Smith's Brewery, but this section was originally a yard and separate brewery, the Victoria Brewery. Back to our car park. Edwin Wilson, now partnered with William Cundall, where the new brewery flourished. This was up until Cundall and Wilson died in 1892 and 1884 respectively. The building was put up for sale and was bought, ironically, by Benjamin Brame, who sold his Victoria Brewery to John Smith's. Brames owned around 30 properties, including the Golden Lion on Bridge Street in Tadcaster. Brames even expanded further by purchasing the Wharfdale Brewery in the nearby town of Wetherby in 1899. It is widely believed that Brames had invested too much, and by 1909 Brames Tadcaster Breweries Limited was wound up. And only a couple of years later, in 1911, Benjamin Brain died, almost penniless. The new brewery was later used by John Smith's as a bottling plant until he was demolished in 1964 to make way for this impressive car park. And finally in Tadcaster we have the Tower Brewery. The Tower Brewery in Tadcaster was built by Hothams & Co, a brewery based a few miles away in York. Originally another family-run company, they sold out to some aristocrats in 1875, leading to the rapid expansion of the company and the building of the Tower Brewery in Tadcaster. After many successful years of Hothams, by 1946 the brewery had been sold to Hammond's Bradford Brewery. This was the start of many changes, comings and goings, names and ownerships of the Tower Brewery. 1960, the Northern Brewery. 1962, the United Brewery. Later to become the Charrington United Brewery. 1966, the merger of Bass with Charrington's. 2000, Bass Charrington was sold to Interbrew. 2002, Interbrew were forced to sell to Coors. And finally in 2005, the merger of Coors with the Molson Brewery formed the giant Molson Coors. And here we are today, the Molson Coors Tower Brewery. So what's happened to the breweries today? John Smith's was acquired by Courage in 1970, then in Scottish and Newcastle in 1995. And finally, John Smith's was under control of the brewing giant Heineken back in 2008. Today the John Smith's Tadcaster Brewery still brews John Smith's, albeit John Smith's Extra Smooth, with carbonated cans. The original John Smith's Magnet Cask Ale is no longer brewed here. After a controversial move away from its Yorkshire roots, John Smith's cask production was relocated to Burtonwood Brewery, before relocating again to the Cameron's Brewery in Hartlepool in around 2011. The brewery is now geared up to produce many other Heineken products such as Foster's, Kronenberg, Amstel and Newcastle Brown. These products are either made at the brewery through its brewing facilities or shipped onto site utilising the canning and bottling facility. Today this site produces around 670 million pints of beer or lager. The new brewery, Victoria Brewery, well they've long since gone. The Tower Brewery, under the guidance of the giant Molson Coors, produces high volume brands for the UK market. Carling, Coors, and this popular Spanish beer, Madri's, produced there. So the Tower Brewery makes this Spanish beer. Did not think Tadcaster was in Spain. Oh well, in the words of the Yorkshireers, Viva Tadcaster. Finally, Samuel Smith's, the original Tadcaster Brewery. Samuel Smith's is still going strong. It fiercely upholds its tradition and heritage, still independent and still in the hands of the Smiths family. Samuel Smith's can be seen as controversial in some quarters. They operate their own pubs and are immensely strict with how those pubs are operated. They take such a zero tolerance policy on mobile phones and bad language, as well as other policies which kind of go against modern day hospitality. Implementation and policing of these rules have often been policed with an iron fist. This has led to many of the Sam Smith's pubs closing. Indeed, many examples of this can be seen in Tadcaster itself, with the many empty pubs and buildings that are associated with the brewery or owner. They all lay sadly empty, including the flagship Angel and White Horse, located right next to the brewery in the centre of Tadcaster. Is this a sad indictment or just a victim of modern day economic struggles and urban decay? That's not for me to say. For the record, I kind of admire the Sam Smith's philosophy. It harks back to a day when pubs were for conversation, not for social media. A traditional pub, warm, welcoming, no distractions such as TV or a playground in the next room. Many may disagree, but equally many will look back with nostalgia when they're all gone and lost forever. Sam Smith still have a steadfast commitment to its traditional brewing practices. Brewing water is still being pumped from the original well, sunk in 1758. They brew beer using copper mash tuns and ferment the beers in Yorkshire squares built from slate. The yeast strain has been used since the 1800s. Oak casks are still used for all its naturally conditioned ales along with a full-time cooper. Even traditional methods of delivery are used. Sam Smith's Shire dray horses are still used to make deliveries in and around Tadcaster every week. The draft range includes All Brewery Bitter, Taddy Lager, Extra Stout are among its draft range, along with the Alpine Lager or Brew Lager, featuring the man in the box. The bottle range includes a nut brown ale, an India ale, an organic chocolate stout, an organic lager, an imperial stout, along with one of my personal favourites, Yorkshire Stingo, an absolute must try. Well, many thanks for watching. My thanks goes to the Brewery History Society for the photographs and research information. I hope you liked my video. If so, please like and subscribe. Cheers!